Bill introduction from agency. Committee members, do you have a request for bill introduction? Seeing none, we'll jump right into our agenda today. Today we will have our presentation on commodities, is what I call it. We will hear from sorghum, wheat, corn, and soybeans. And what we will do is allow our conferees to make a presentation. At the end of their presentation, each particular grain is what I will say. Then we will ask questions. So between presentations will be the time for questions. So we will start with the Kansas Grain Sorghum Commission. Kevin Nebel, okay, is the vice chairman. Mr. Nebel, Mr. Vice Chairman, welcome to the committee. Look forward to your information.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and glad to be here, members of the committee. It's an honor to present you with information from the Commission on the state of the sorghum industry in Kansas. My name's Kevin Kniebel. I serve as the Vice Chair of the Grain Sorghum Commission, and I'm also on the advisory board for the Collaborative Sorghum Improvement Program. That's CSIP. I think you'll hear more about CSIP in the future. It's been around quite a while, over 10 years now to be in fact, and we will touch on what it does and go from there. I'm from White City, Kansas. That's in Morris County. That's in the east central part of the state. Not quite as much sorghum there, but sorghum is grown border to border, top to bottom, and it's a very versatile crop and one that provides a lot of benefits for the state. Myself and my family grow sorghum as well as other crops, and we also have a cow herd, and both commercial and registered, and a feedlot where we finish the cattle that don't make our breeding cut. What I appreciate a lot about sorghum and the qualities that it has is not only the grain, but the residue, the stalks and roots and all that. That's very beneficial. You know, we had all this snow lately, and all the stalks helped hold that snow in place, you know, and especially in western Kansas, even more so than here. That is very important to retain all that moisture. And the roots, you know, they enhance soil health and benefit the environment that way, as well as control erosion. So we need to be proud of the fact that Kansas is the #1 sorghum state in the nation, growing over 58% of the crop nationwide, and you know, that's very, very exciting for the state. The Sorghum Board's a farmer-led group, and we're committed to sorghum production or promotion, research, and information to develop and expand markets and help producers with their productions and such. Joining me today are our staff. Back here in the back is Adam York, our Commission Administrator. With him also is Andrew Lee, our Barry Flinchball Fellow. He's stomped around these halls for a year or so, and so he's versed in what you guys need, maybe what you guys need to hear, and I think that's a big plus for our program. Along with them is Dr. Sarah Sexton Bowser. She's back here. She is the Managing Director of the Center for Sorghum Improvement. It's housed at K-State. She oversees CSIP. She is a very important talent we have, and she's involved in CSIP immensely and does a great job of procuring grants, matches, and other sources of other resources. And those matches and grants are great for leveraging dollars, so we get more bang for our buck and And just like this program, the CSIP program that I will talk about, the CSIP program is a collaboration between the Commission. It's funded by the Commission, K-State, KDA, and the U.S. Or United Checkoff program. So with all those resources, we still get private funding too. So it's a great program to leverage dollars, you know, for research, promotion, education, all those things for sorghum. So on the education side, we had a trade team from China and also one from India. You know, China's in the market at certain times of the year, and we sell to the highest bidder. So China, as a rule, has been our most important market export-wise. India has shown that they are going to need some other source of feed grain. We had the pleasure of having them at our farm and learned what they wanted and needed. And, you know, that was very fruitful on our end. You know, you had a bunch of Muslims there at a cattle ranch, you know, and we got along quite well. Of course, it probably didn't hurt that we had a Roxor, which is an Indian-made vehicle, sitting there too, but maybe we can trade back and forth a little bit that way. So after the visit at our farm, the next couple days they spent at K-State learning how to utilize grain sorghum in their poultry programs. And so they had their country's leading feed processor there, as well as large producers and their nutritionists. So they were excited. When they left, they were excited to see what sorghum could provide for their country. We also have education programs for our producers. We had field days that show them how to best manage some of their issues or improve their production. So that was another education facet that we have. I've been remiss not to mention the water conservation qualities of sorghum and how it produces well with or without very much moisture. You know, it produces great with moisture, but in times of less moisture, it's very beneficial. You know, we have some ongoing programs, and you can look at some of those in some of the information that we have in our packet. And I would invite you to look at those. There's details in there and very interesting information in there about different aspects and different things that we're researching and looking at. So with that being said, our annual report is in the packet, and along with our 2024 audit. So I think you know, I'm excited about sorghum and its future here in the state, and I hope to entertain any questions you have, and thank you for letting me present.
Thank you for your presentation. Committee, you have questions of Vice Chairman Nebel. Pardon me, Senator Ware.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for being here. I appreciate all this information. One thing that I'd like to know a little bit more about, I know at one point one year we even got popped sorghum like popcorn, of which I had no idea was a thing. What other interesting products are made from sorghum?
Well, I know that there's something out there that Jennifer Garner, the actress, likes. Some child's extruded food for her kids. I don't know if that's good or bad, but so be it. But no, there are food resources. You know, I think a nominee for Health and Human Services likes sorghum for its health benefits too. But there again, be that as it may. So, you know, we're looking at a lot of different things. There's some biofilm, maybe to take place of plastics. that, that we've been involved in a project with that, and it's stepped on to its next iteration, and we'll see how that turns out. And of course, there's ethanol and all the byproducts with that, and I don't know, is there any other questions? No? Not with? Yes, ma'am?
Francisco.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and also thank you for being here. I've heard some, and I talk about involvement at the Kansas State University with the sorghum research and investments. Do you have any comments about that?
I bet I can have Sarah answer that more distinctly. Or Adam.
If you could identify yourself for the record, please.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Adam York. I serve as administrator to the Kansas Grain Sorghum Commission. The commissions all work through our land grant university in the state of Kansas. Kansas State University typically is where the commissions have worked at promoting research investments. One of the ways we do that, as Commissioner Kniebel mentioned, is through the Collaborative Sorghum Investment Program, which takes those producer dollars both from the National United Sorghum Checkoff Program as well as the Kansas Grain Sorghum Commission, and works with those researchers to commercialize that research from the farmer dollar into marketable aspects on the back end, like Senator Ware said, for these products like biofilm, which can be commercialized and readily uptaken by the market, that then adds value back to the producer ultimately for their crops, the market on the end of their crops.
Additional questions, committee? I did have a couple questions. You mentioned that grain sorghum, which I would call Milo,
Yes, sir.
is I'm going to use the word somewhat drought resistant. Whenever there is a drought, does the yield, does it drop significantly, or are we still getting a decent yield?
It just depends. It can wait quite a while for that next drink of water, and it can sit there and somewhat hold its production. But yes, it does get less. It does get less. And, in extreme circumstances, yes, it might not even be harvestable. But that residue is very important in western Kansas and other parts of the state to hold that snow, to prevent the wind erosion. And, once that gets going, it's hard to stop. There's places that they may plant sorghum just for that reason instead of other crops.
All right, thank you. And from the audit report, there is a line that says that they sent a letter that describes findings they identified as material weaknesses in the internal control. Do you have a knowledge as to if those internal weaknesses have been corrected, or are there still ongoing issues?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the material weakness was an accrual accounting method, and we can forward that letter also. An accrual accounting method from the last fiscal year where, because of the nature of the Sorghum Commission, our revenues are not taken in real time. They're provided in passback from the end of the last production year from the United Sorghum Checkoff Program. Those passbacks are accounted for in two different installments, one after the fiscal year pending a final report. That final report is what releases that final passback. It was accounted for in the next fiscal year. We just had to make an adjustment to move that back to the fiscal year 23, where it was actually recognized, so that our books would be up to date for this fiscal year. So can transmit that letter to the committee as well.
Thank you for your answer. Committee, if you have additional questions, I would ask you to ask afterwards, seek out Vice Chairman Kniebel, because we've got 3 other reports to receive. Thank you for your report. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
And next up is the Kansas Wheat Commission. These individuals, their names are a challenge for the chair. Not the first name. Ron, how do you pronounce your last name, sir?
Ron Supus.
Suplis?
Shouldn't be, I don't want to be a challenge, yeah. Supus.
Okay.
First thing I'd like to say is that I appreciate the fact that you're endorsing this bill on weights and measures for trucks. What would you call that? You told me earlier.
Well, it's Senate Bill 17. It would provide what I call a grace for harvesters during harvest time to be up to 10% over weight limit if they are stopped by an inspector.
Well, we appreciate that in farming. The other thing I would comment on, I don't see a bright colored jacket today. I was looking forward to that.
Thank you for noticing.
I'm an art major, or was, so I appreciate all the colors. So, like I said, my name is Ron Supas. I'm a farmer from western Kansas, farm in Lane, Finney, and Scott County, along with my wife, Shirley, and along with her, Marcia Boswell, and Shana DeGroot from Kansas Wheat. So any questions I can't answer, they're my handlers. Didn't have to wear a shock collar today, thank goodness. So, Chairman Peck and members of the Senate Ag Committee, thank you for the opportunity to provide an annual report from the Kansas Wheat Commission. It is funded by the wheat assessment, which collects 2 cents per bushel of wheat at the first point of sale. The Kansas farmers who grow wheat are stakeholders, and our 9-member commission represent the farmers. In addition to copies of this testimony, we have presented you with a copy of the 2024 annual report and our FY 2024 annual audit. 2024 marked the 150th anniversary of the introduction of turkey red winter wheat to Kansas by the Mennonite farmers who immigrated from the Ukraine, securing Kansas' place as the wheat state and breadbasket of the world. One hopeful homesteader, Bernard Workington, a Mennonite miller from the Crimea, settled near Halstead, Kansas in 1871. He carried the seeds of turkey red wheat, a hard red winter wheat variety. It was tremendously successful in Europe. The hardy variety was planted in the fall and could be harvested in the summer, allowing it to take timely measure of the moisture provided during the winter. First turkey red was planted in Marion County, 1873, and harvested in 1874. By 1919, turkey red wheat constituted more than 82% of planted acres in Kansas. It remained the most popular variety until 1939. Maintaining its dominance as superior genetics for crossing into new varieties. At that time, Kansas planted 13,700 acres of wheat with a yield of 12 bushels per acre. It produced 115,000 bushels. While Kansas wheat acres have decreased since the highs of the late 1900s, research funded by Kansas wheat farmers through the Kansas Wheat Commission Wheat Assessment has focused on improved variety development, more than doubling yields from the creation of the checkoff to today. Without the use of certain technologies, such as genetic modification, each year, Kansas Wheat Commission provides more than $1.3 million to research, such as breeding, wheat quality, disease screening, phenotyping, etc. You mentioned the fact that you're to ask questions afterward. I'll ask a question now. What prompted some of our ancestors to leave the Crimea, Ukraine, the Volga River, and other areas to come to Kansas? The government. It was a recruitment by the railroad primarily, but the people from Russia and that area had to do a lot with Stalin. Plus, the railroads at that time needed commerce, so they needed people to come to Kansas to grow things so they could haul those. So at that time, they helped us out. They kind of worked for farmers. Now I think the farmers work for the railroad, but that's another issue. The number of wheat acres planted in Kansas in the 1960s, anyone have an idea? Almost 12 million acres. In 1929, there was more than 12 million acres. 2024, 7.8 million acres. All of our efforts to improve the productivity and profitability of Kansas wheat farmers continue to center around research. In December of 2022, we celebrated our 10th year in the Kansas Wheat Innovation Center, located in Manhattan, just north of the Bill Snyder Family Stadium. This ground is owned by the university, and we have a 50-year lease for that building. The center was paid for by the farmers through the wheat assessment It is designed from the ground up to be the nation's home for wheat-based collaboration and innovation, including conducting cutting-edge research in wheat variety development. It has 37,000 square feet of laboratory and greenhouse space, and a dozen full and part-time plant scientists are working to create wheat doubled haploids. It speeds up the time it takes to create new varieties from 12 years to 6. We also celebrated the conclusion of a $4 million Fields Forward campaign for private investment in wheat research with the debut of a virtual tour of the Innovation Center. So if you're not able to go to the Innovation Center in person, you can get on our website and take a look at the visual tour, and it'll show you everything that's going on in that building. It's really amazing. Kansas State University is emerging as world's foremost location for global food systems and biosecurity innovations, and is a premier economic driver for the state of Kansas. The Kansas Wheat Commission and Kansas Association of Wheat Growers have pledged $1.5 million over the next 5 years to support this plan for signature research and innovation partnership centers. With these private commitments, Kansas State University was able to qualify for an additional state 3-to-1 funding match, which will diversify Kansas' value-added food and agricultural economy, expand growth in the state's top economic sectors, and support key pillars of K-State's economic prosperity plan by attracting businesses to the state throughout the value-added food chain. Kansas wheat farmers are very supportive of these efforts to modernize facilities at K-State. The Kansas Wheat Innovation Center represents the single largest investment by wheat producers in this nation, but it is not the only way in which wheat farmers invest wheat research. Each year, the Kansas Wheat Commission hears from more than 24 researchers at Kansas State University, USDA, and other entities about a variety of research proposals that help wheat farmers increase yields and improve profitability, plus ensure the quality and integrity of Kansas-grown wheat to end users and consumers. Again, as in the past, the Kansas Wheat Commission has invested more than $1.3 million, more than 20% of the budget, in research projects, and it probably is even higher than that when you talk about other things going on within the facility. Included in the research proposals is funding toward K-State's wheat breeding programs in Manhattan and Hayes. Other Kansas wheat-funded research projects are leading the way toward identifying genes that improve resistance to viruses, engineering resistance to pests, phenotyping and wheat ancestors for drought, disease-resistant, and other traits. Kansas Wheat RX is a partnership between Kansas Wheat and K-State Research and Extension to disseminate the latest research recommendations for high-yielding and high-quality wheat to Kansas wheat farmers. This effort is a combination of suggested management practices for economic and sustainable production of high-quality winter wheat in Kansas. Wheat RX is a series of extension publications and other educational outreach designed to address key management areas of hard winter wheat. These publications contain recent data based on novel research funded in part by wheat farmers through the Kansas Wheat Checkoff. Several Wheat RX education seminars have been held across the state since the winter of 2022. These have been well attended by farmers. In 2024, Kansas Wheat, in collaboration with Kansas State University researchers, kicked off a new educational campaign aimed at farmers, landowners, financial institutions, and policymakers. Wheat Beyond the Value of the Grain emphasized the wide-ranging advantages of including winter wheat in cropping systems, extending far beyond the grain's market price. Wheat as a crop brings many benefits to the cropping system. Research conducted globally shows that including wheat in a cropping rotation significantly boosts yields of other crops like corn and soybeans compared to monoculture systems. A long-term Kansas study reported a 12-bushel increase in soybean yields when rotated with winter wheat. Regardless of the tillage system, used compared to continuous soybean cultivation. Similarly, western Kansas corn yields were 14.7 bushels per acre higher after wheat. Furthermore, wheat helps improve soil structure, organic matter content, and nutrient cycling, enhancing soil health and providing wildlife habitat. Wheat's presence also helps control pests, diseases, reducing the need for chemicals.
Mr. Supis, I'm going to ask you for, on the sake of time, if you would, to summarize the remaining part of your testimony so we have time
Okay.
for a few questions, if you would, please.
Okay.
I noticed that on page 4 and 5, you've got some information, some numbers as it relates to 2024 production and harvest and exports. I found that
Interesting.
myself and beneficial.
Okay. We have just a few examples of how Kansas Wheat Commission is working on behalf of the farmers. Last year we had bad weather, bad crops, about a 200 million bushel crop, a little over 200 million. This past year then, I said last year, the year before, this past year we improved by about 100 million bushel. We're at 305 or 10 million, I think. So basically, an average crop of Kansas wheat would be 320 to 30 million bushels. So each year we compete with North Dakota as far as who's going to produce the most wheat. We had this past year, last year we went into the fall with seeding very good. Had a good stand of wheat going into the winter. Didn't get a lot of rain in the spring, and that's what caused the lack of bushels. This year, we have a little less of a stand, but it's adequate. We think if we get some spring rains, we'll be in pretty good shape. So, ask questions.
Without the spring rains, we could face additional challenges as we have the last couple of years. Is that what you're saying?
We can go another month in western Kansas, and then we'll need something. Right now, wheat is in dormancy, so it's not a problem. Pertaining to the milo, I shouldn't say this, but we grow on our farm hard white winter wheat, totally, and white food-grade sorghum. So I know they use the red sorghum to make baijiu. I don't know if that was brought up, but that's an alcohol they make in China. We haul a lot of our food-grade white sorghum to New Life, which is an industry in Scott City. They make baby food, they make flour, they make peanut butter out of sunflowers. It's amazing. Do you have any questions?
Do you have questions of Mr. Supis? Senator Alley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for being here today. One of the things you mentioned, the international markets. You sell the raw material, the wheat itself, to the international markets, or you sell a processed wheat or sorghum to that?
Well, you probably are aware that Kansas wheat exports about 50%, sometimes 55% of our wheat internationally, and it is just a commodity. It's not flour. Flour mills take care of that. I'm not sure how much they export. We have an organization made up of 17 states, wheat commissions, that create what we call U.S. wheat, and they're in charge of doing this international trade for us, international. They don't actually sell. They go educate the customer. They will even go as far as to write contracts for those customers. And then industry comes in and bids on those contracts. So all states are different. The Midwestern states like Kansas export at least half. The other half stays domestic. If you get up into the Pacific Northwest, they'll export 80 to 85%. A lot of that up there goes to Asian countries. A lot of our biggest wheat customer is Mexico. And believe it or not, we do import wheat from Canada. And believe it or not, right now it is cheaper to import wheat from Europe into our East Coast than it is to haul wheat by rail from Kansas to the East Coast.
You have, pardon me for jumping in, Senator, but do you have a reason why it would be cheaper to him?
Freight rates. It's totally freight rates. In fact, we've talked for years with the railroad about freight rates on wheat. From Kansas to the Gulf, basically 25 cents a bushel more to haul a bushel of wheat than it is corn. Why? I don't get a good answer when I ask that.
That's a good question that maybe we should pursue a little more. But,
We do appreciate your support. We appreciate the fact that you formed our commissions. We rely on you for infrastructure, not only rail and roads, but also policy. So do appreciate that.
Mr. Alley, did you have additional? In the sake of time, we're going to move to our next presenter. Again, committee, I would urge you to look at the information that the Wheat Commission has provided. I find it interesting and informative. Our next presenter will be from the Kansas Corn Commission. Now, a name that I can pronounce, Mr. Kent Moore, the chairman. Mr. Moore, welcome to the committee.
Well, thank you so much. I do appreciate the opportunity to be here, Mr. Chairman and committee members. Really do appreciate it. My name's Kent Moore. I chair the Kansas Corn Commission. Been doing that a while. I do want to take a moment to introduce the people that I have with me today. We got Josh Rowe, CEO of Kansas Corn. To his left is J.D. Hanna. J.D. is the president of the Kansas Corn Growers Association. He had the easy trip. He's just right north of town, around Silver Lake. Then in the corner, we got Taylor Williamson on Kansas Corn staff on our policy side of things. I farm in the northwest part of Pratt County, fifth-generation farmer. Our wagon wheel broke there, I guess, in 1877. It'd be a good way to put it. So we've been in that corner of Pratt County for 5 generations. Kansas Corn had a good 2024. It was nice to have a good crop. The previous couple of years had a lot of challenges with weather events, whether it be drought or just a tremendous amount of severe weather. But 2024 was good. We raised 748 million bushels of corn, according to the last USDA report. Harvested acres of about 5.8 million acres. One kind of interesting thing we do every time we have a meeting or a Zoom call or anything like that is we always go through each commissioner and say, well, how are things looking this crop year for you in your area? And in 2024, everybody was pretty positive about how things were going, but also the amount of time I've spent on the commission and on growers' activities, it's always striking to me just the vast difference in climates that we deal with in the state of Kansas. Just a tremendous change when you go from the eastern border of the state to the western border of the state. We'd always tease we had a commissioner from White Cloud, Kansas. I mean, you can't get any further northeast than that. And hell, he could see Iowa from his porch. So his conditions were always much different than most of us that were west of there. And so I think it's a real testament to the ability of Kansas producers to take what comes. And some years are going to be good, some years not as good, but we always try to be as efficient and as productive as possible. Where does Kansas corn go? You can always kind of split it into thirds. About a third goes to ethanol, about a third goes to the feed industry, and a third goes out of the state. What happens to that goes out of the state? Primarily, it goes to ethanol or feed. When you look at it, for instance, a lot of the corn that's grown in the southeast part of the state kind of moves its way toward the poultry industry for feed. So it just, again, keep in mind that even the commodity that leaves the state is primarily probably going to be consumed by ethanol or feed. The commission was formed in 1977 by statute. We levy a 1 cent check off on the first point of purchase. I would mention on the grower side of things, JD has the honor of being the chair of the grower side in our 50th year. 50 years of the Kansas Corn Growers Association, and we're going to celebrate that fact later this week in Salina at our Kansas Corn Symposium and at the Kansas Commodity Classic. And then I got to thinking a little bit more about that. I was sitting back there, and so what do you get over those 50 years? And what struck me is just the number of people you have here today, and the people of the past that have dedicated their time on a voluntary basis to advocate, excuse me, to advocate for their communities, their grains, their commodities. And so I do appreciate the people that came before us that are in the room today that took time out of their days to come up here and testify in front of the legislature and reemphasize the importance of our commodity commissions and groups to you all. And then in turn of that, I don't think that there's any question that your constituents and your Senate districts appreciate the fact that you're taking the time and effort to represent them on their behalf. So really do appreciate your service to the state of Kansas. A couple of things that I would point out from the standpoint of what do we do at Kansas Corn. We try to increase corn usage. I mean, that's the bottom line. And I would point out one program that we've been very active and involved in on the use side is just our effort to try to increase ethanol blend rates in the state. We have an extensive program of helping station owners through the cost process of upgrading their fuel facilities to the pumping of higher blended fuels. There is absolutely no doubt that consumers are interested. If they have the opportunity to buy a higher blend of fuel, they do it. And so the commission has been very active over the years since ethanol became such an important part of our market to try to increase the availability of higher blends of ethanol to the consumer. On the education side, I guess it'd be about 9 years ago, maybe getting close to 10, the commission felt like we needed to do a better job of outreach to our students, our teachers and students in the state of Kansas. We developed an education program that basically designs curriculum for K through 12. And what we do is provide training to teachers and provide the everything that teacher will need to be able to instruct that curriculum. And if it's a lab, we provide them the needed materials it'll take to execute that lesson plan. So it's been extremely well received, extremely successful. There is a hunger in our education community to implement these programs that our corn education team at Kansas Corn has developed. For instance, in our first year of doing this, we reached 30 teachers and about 900 students. Last year, we reached 3,844 teachers and over 104,000 students. Just an incredible growth that we're really, really proud of. And it kind of looks like that we're going to maybe take the step forward in possibly sharing some of that expertise on the education side through National Corn on a more national basis coming into the future. One thing I always like to mention, as you all well aware, the checkoff is a refundable component. If a producer so desires, they can seek to take that 1 cent back. In 2024, our checkoff percentage was 3.84%. And that's down from the 23 of 6.9%. So I really think that checkoff refund percentage is a good indication that Kansas Corn is out there, and producers recognize that we are working diligently on their behalf. And so with that, and in the interest of time, I would stand for any questions that you might have. Thank you.
for your presentation. Committee questions. Senator Bowser.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and just very briefly, I want to recognize another great contributor to our ag industry, Sarah Bowser, another great farmer in our state, much better than I am. Welcome. I also really and thank you for your presentation. I'm interested in corn investment in our state. Are there plans to, what are we doing in terms of research and development investment? Are we going to build any new ethanol plants, or what are we doing in terms of kind of reinvestment into the industry, help it keep growing?
Yeah, I think the thing that we're doing the most on that forefront is just trying to increase blend rates within the state. The other thing that we've been very active in is that the ethanol plants in the state of Kansas have a transportation advantage to serve the state of California. And we have spent considerable amount of time and resources trying to make inroads into the state of California. We've also leveraged Kansas dollars with Nebraska and Missouri, because they're also similarly poised to take advantage of that market. And so I think, are we going to see a lot of growth in, new ethanol plants? Well, I don't know that that's the case, but I do think that we will never back down on our effort to try to increase the availability of ethanol to the consumer. And I think that's where we will have the most success moving from this point forward.
Bowser, is Sarah Bowser any relation to you?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. She is my cousin's wife.
Okay.
We're delighted to have her here. Again, I mentioned earlier, a few weeks ago, I'm probably the worst farmer Bowser in Jackson County, and this is evidence of that right here.
I will note, committee, that you can see that the 1 cent checkoff, it looks like it brings in nearly $6.5 million.
Right, yeah. Yeah, and the thing that too, I mean, we also have just gotten through a couple of crop years where we had less revenue. So I would compliment our staff of always kind of having the commissioners geared towards having some reserve funding to where that's unpredictable. We don't know if we're going to have a super year or average year or down year production wise, but we came through that just fine. Had to tighten our belt a little bit. But there again, we saw it to the end, and we're blessed with a little bit better crop in 2024.
Just briefly, and then we do have another senator with a question. I see the California E85 station grant. What is that? Yeah,
that is the effort that we're making with those other states to try to. There's it's basically leveraging into some federal dollars that are targeted towards. Building ethanol infrastructure so that if we get that product to California, we have stations that can adequately distribute such. So that's the whole effort on working towards higher blends.
Thank you. And Senator Fagg, I apologize. I'll ask you to ask your question after the meeting. We do need to continue moving forward in respect for the Kansas Soybean Commission to give them.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you for your presentation. Our next presentation is the Kansas Soybean Commission. We've got Raylan Phelan?
Phelan, yes, Raylan Phelan. Well, good morning. First of all, thank all of you for representing our state and having farmers' interests at heart. I do appreciate that as a farmer. I am a farmer from Melbourne, Kansas, about 40 miles south of here. I'm currently serving as the vice chair of the Kansas Soybean Commission. And a couple weeks ago, Caleb, he asked if I could come present to the Senate, House, and Ag committees. And I said, sure. And he says, well, you got to wear a suit. And people don't wear suits like they used to, church, funerals. But I go to church and go to funerals, and you look around, there's not many suits. So I pulled out this suit out of the closet, and the pants didn't fit. My wife was a home ec teacher, so she fixed the pants. But the last time I wore this suit, I was on the Kansas Soybean Association president. I went to D.C. I walked in to see Senator Roberts. He had the same suit on. So this is my Senator Roberts suit. So I'll get back down to the report. As I said, I'm a fifth-generation farmer from Osage County. We grow soybeans, corn, wheat, and sorghum, represented by all the commodities here. We also have a cow herd, cow-calf, where we raise yearling calves and then take them to market. I want to introduce a couple of people that are representing Kansas soybeans here as part of staff. Caleb Little, he's our director for the commission, and then Gary Reeser, he is also on staff helping us out. So the commission, it's comprised of 7 farmers who are elected, and then there's also 2 commissioners at large. I'm a commissioner at large. The farmers that are elected, they are from the different geographical areas of the state. And so that's how we comprise of a 9-member commission. We volunteer our time. It's not paid. It's just we want to promote the use of soybeans. And that's how I got involved several years ago. You know, I wanted to see how we could maybe do different things with soybeans to grow our product, to grow our sales, and that's why I got involved. So the Kansas soybean farmers, all soybean farmers in the U.S. participate in a checkoff. And this checkoff, it's a half a percent of the first point of sale. So for what that really means is if you sell a bushel of soybeans, and a bushel of soybeans is basically 2 5-gallon buckets, just a little bit more than 2 5-gallon buckets, there's a 1/2 of 1%. Currently, soybeans are about $10 a bushel. So for them 2 buckets of soybeans, you take a nickel and it goes to the checkoff. And then half of that stays within the state, and half of it goes to the United Soybean Board. And I'll talk about that just a little bit in a few moments. This USB, it's comprised of 78 farmers from 30 soybean producing states around the United States. We have 3 directors who are on the USB, and they are Lance Rezac from St. Mary's, Charles Atkinson, he's from the Great Bend area, and then Kurt Marth, he's from out around the Colby-Oakley area out west. So now I'll talk just a little bit about the finances for the commission. From July 23 to July 24, our share of the collections came to about $3.5 million. And it was about $1 million less than previous year. And as these other gentlemen have talked about, we as soybean farmers, we also experienced declining yields because of the weather. If it doesn't rain, we don't grow the beans. And there's only probably about around 10% of the beans in the in Kansas that are irrigated. And so on our farm, we don't have any irrigation. We pray a lot and let the good Lord help us out. So we spent about $5.8 million of our reserves to continue important program investments. And there's a comprehensive breakdown in your handouts that you have. One of the highlights of these investments is the Kansas State University Ag Innovation. And we were pleased to be able to, using some of our reserves, to pledge $4 million over a 5-year time frame to this project that's going on at Kansas State University. And we're very pleased about that. Some of the things that are going on with the ag innovations, they are using soy-based products in the construction of the buildings. An example of that are some concrete sealers, carpet backing, paint, insulation. They're all part of the checkoff. And so as soybean farmers, we're glad to see this take place. Some other things that, as far as the commission, that we've been very heavily involved with is production of biodiesel and renewable diesel, soy-based tires, and research for new soybean varieties, just to name a few. Each year, the amount we have to invest, it's dependent on the strength of soybean prices and the volume of soybeans that we're able to grow. So 2 years, in 2022 and 2023, we didn't have very good yields, but the price was up. And so it kind of leveled out. And so we was able to continue with our funding. We did have some reserves, and so we pulled from those reserves to make these investments. So some of the universities that we work with as part of the commission is Kansas State, KU, Fort Hays, PSU, Pittsburgh State University, Seward County Community College, the Beloit Technical College, and we also provide technical training on soy fuels that are used around the state. So talk just a little bit more about the finances. In 2024, we saw a significant drop in the value of all of our commodities. And according to the USDA, the national average for price received for beans in 2023 was around $14 a bushel. A year later, in 2024, is a little under $12 a bushel, $11.80. But thankfully, we did see better growing conditions in 2024, better growing conditions, but the price dropped. Currently, we're about $10 a bushel. So for Kansas in this last year, the average was up a little bit, is about 35 bushel per acre. Previous years, I think in 2023 is around 26 bushel an acre. So as a commission, we are always looking to be leaders for the future and invest in our checkoff dollars in ways that benefit our state's enterprising soybean farmers. We strive to create progress powered by Kansas farmers with every dollar that is spent. And this is possible through the funding market and new use development, research and education and outreach efforts. And I'll tell you a little bit about when we go through and look at the projects to fund. It's not, we don't fund everything because we highly scrutinize. There's a lot of tough questions that are asked when we're going through these reviews at the end of each year. And so some of the projects make it, some of them don't make it. There are some projects that we start for a year and we really don't see the results, and so we stop the funding and don't go ahead and fund them for their second year. In your packet, there's some marketing plan details of our priorities that we believe boost the profitability of the Kansas soybean producers by improving soybean quality and successfully marketing our product. To leverage our resources, some of our work is done through some other national organizations. One that's near and dear to my heart is the Soy Transportation Coalition. And what this is looking for products that use soybeans for road sealant, bridges, and infrastructure of the transportation around the United States. Also, taking our products and being able to move them products out of the United States.
If you don't mind, Mr. Phelan, we are up against the clock.
Okay.
If there's anything last you want to say before I see if there are any committee questions?
Yeah, just a couple more words and just thank you for your time. I'm proud to be a soybean farmer. I'm proud to be able to serve on the Soybean Commission, and I thank you for your time. So if you have any questions.
Thank you for your presentation. Committee, do you have questions? Senator Francisco.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I apologize, it's not a question, but I thank you for giving us the candle and a few other things.
Oh, you're welcome.
The Soybean Association.
Soy candles.
Committee, we do have something in Kansas, a $400 million investment in southeast Kansas for a Bartlett soybean processing plant. I'm hoping to have a presentation from Bartlett. It's down in Senate District 15, which is a district I happen to represent. But I can see that it will change potentially or help to change the soybean market in the state of Kansas with time. And I don't see any additional questions for you. Committee, I will draw your attention to the fact that tomorrow we will start our committee meeting at 8:45. 8:45, the chair will be testifying before the Senate Transportation Committee. We will be having our confirmation hearing for Acting Secretary Kennedy for Kansas Department of Wildlife and Parks. We will not rush through this confirmation hearing. If tomorrow is not enough time, then we will bring him back next week. So I want you to, you should have been delivered to your office a packet of confidential information. And when it says confidential, it means just that. Don't go spreading it around, but read it. Get familiar with the information in there. Do not hesitate tomorrow to ask any questions of Mr. Kennedy because we want to make certain that we are doing due diligence on our recommendation to the full Senate as it relates to the Secretary for Wildlife and Parks. So again, thank you for your presentation, Committee. With that, we are adjourned.